Hey everybody, this is Liam Bowler and Dynamic Alignment Bodywork, though as you can see, if you know what it looks like, I'm not in my office, I'm in my friend's kitchen to make a video about, in particular, bending over and picking stuff up, and if you've had any kind of back pain with that, though really it's hard to speak to the total implications, but it's about more than that. As a lot of these videos are, you could say that pain is sort of one of the last resorts of the body's way of grabbing our attention, and there's often layers beneath that. So we'll talk about like spinal mechanics and bending over, though even mechanics isn't quite the right word, but we'll get into it. A couple things before we start. One, these videos are for everybody, though I think this one in particular you'll find of use if you have probably a kind of a moderately strong sense of being able to sense your body, that interoceptive feeling your body from the inside out state. And if not, this is sure a great place to practice. And then two, if you've had any sort of experience in the fitness world around like how to lift stuff, or like Pilates or yoga or correct alignment, if that's some vocabulary going around in your head, this might be a useful little, I don't know, kind of a loving wrench in your gears. This is stuff that I've been playing with in my personal practice and with my clients, and it's all about, as all these are, where the rubber hits the road. One last thing I want to say before we start is thanks to Kurt Hardesty and connectivemovement.com. It's KINECTIVE, and he made a video that has sparked a couple things for sure for me and how I think about movement, and this is definitely a big one, and it has to do with our connection with the spine and being able to feel the full spinal column. I mean, really the whole body, but the spine in particular from the inside out, and how that translates to moving well. And again, not just moving in a way that doesn't hurt, but moving in a way that's very full, and not being in pain is sort of one of the, I don't know, bonuses, side effects of that, right? But it's more than that. And if you've gone, you know, maybe knowingly or not, sort of very deep into the world of sort of movement and knowing yourself from the inside out, and know that feeling that we're more than just a summation of parts. But anyway, we could probably talk about that for a long time, but let's get to it. I'm going to talk about bending over to pick something up, and how to do that without back pain. Sometimes people talk about bending, bending at the knees, or like squatting and then keeping up. Or if you're familiar with a deadlift, I'm hinging forward at the hips and then grabbing here, and I want to, essentially there's a lot of different cues, but it comes down to having a neutral spine. We're going to talk about hinge at the hips, send your butt back, send your sits bones back, bring your chest forward, keep your low back flat. All this sort of, I mean, not particularly fancy language, but all these different cues are essentially just saying like, hey, you should be able to have the range of motion to keep a neutral spine. What that can do, the downside of that, though, in my experience, when we start getting into how we do this, is we can start to get very sort of stiff. And gosh, even there, before the downsides, that's a good platform to start getting into some of like the nuances. And in a lot of ways, we can even start at those nuances. And what I'd like to propose today is really anytime you're standing and walking, but especially when you go to pick something over. And so whether this is an official exercise like a deadlift or like kettlebell swings, or if you're going to pick up a pencil or a kid, or something off the ground, to stay a connected feeling all the way down to your sacrum, to the bottom of the spine. And that's really it. And we'll do a little awareness exercise now that can be a helpful place to start with that. So I want to start by standing up. And I guess I should say, even before we start, that's essentially what this sort of form is all about, right? If I round at my back and I go to lift something up, if I'm sensitive to that feeling of my whole spine, there's sort of oftentimes a break in a circuit right here, or I can't really feel my hips anymore. Maybe I can feel them like they're there, but when I'm standing, so stand up and see if you can get a sense of your cranium and all the way down your spine, all the way down to your sacrum. And give your attention there, like if that was a plant, maybe a plant that grows really fast, and your attention is like water or sunlight as a metaphor. Sometimes you think it's a good one for something like this, and like if that plant were able to grow. Your awareness on your spine can be like that same thing. So we're often more or less aware of what's happening here, in a certain way, traveling down. What I can do to help bring this awareness is pressing a little bit. I'm just below my belly button and above my pubic bone. Here, and then here I'm on the bottom of my spine. And I'm going to give a little bit of pressure inward, enough to where I can really feel it and I can feel myself. And I want to think about breathing in between my hands. This isn't a big kind of distended belly, yogi kind of breath. I'm sure yogis do all sorts of things, right? So nothing against that. But being able to let my attention drop into my hands. This isn't much to watch, but it's something entirely differently to do. So really give your attention there. For maybe some people will find it very quickly. Others it might take more like 30 seconds or a minute. But keep your attention like if you were watching a really beautiful sunset, right? It's something that just has your attention without you being laser focused necessarily, but also you're not texting your friends and thinking about something else. You're giving your full attention to this. So bring that full attention down in between your hands, where you can breathe, and you might even feel your hands moving just a tiny bit this way. I'm not forcing it. All of that to help invoke this feeling where I can really feel this lowest part of my abdomen and my spine. And the spine is like a three-dimensional thing. It also has a front, right? From here, we can practice bending over to pick something up. And even with a rounded back, you can play with what's like to pick something up, staying super connected to this feeling and noticing when and if it breaks. If there's sort of a break in that circuitry, even really subtle, where it's like to go to that point and then come back. Again, this isn't very fun to watch necessarily. And it's interesting because it's not about form. It's not like you should not do this ever or do this ever. But that internal guidance is going to come out of your body by learning how to move and hinge forward by just staying connected to this feeling. You can bend your knees, you can even round your back, but just let what happens naturally if none of that matters, and the only thing that matters is staying connected to your pelvis, right? Having that feeling. And then from here, if I get down in a deadlift position, this is an advanced exercise. I wouldn't suggest someone goes and tries to lift something really heavy this way. But I can get a feel of what it's like to pick something up with that connectedness. And that tends to produce the right form for the correct movement. So if I'm lifting 200 pounds, my connection to my pelvis is going to guide me into a neutral spine position, which just so happens to be the right form. If I'm going over to pick up a pencil or leaning over on a counter to pick something up, right? I can have that roundedness, but it's about knowing my back and not hinging at the same place every time. Those hinge points often aren't the points that hurt, but they're the points that are related to the points that hurt, often just above or below, because that's sort of the break in the circuit. And then just below or just above that dam is sort of the polluted waters, you could say. So that's about it. Again, a simple concept, and one that's been really important for me and sort of new and very cool and useful, both in sort of a training sense, but even more than that in both a day-to-day activity sense and in just like a body waking up, what this maybe what this can be about, and knowing ourselves from the inside out. Keeping that full spinal awareness while you do anything, and being really vigilant not to slip into something else or sort of fool yourself into thinking it's still there. But knowing that connection, again, you can use this as a tool for a little pressing. Knowing that connection and then feeling when it leaves and seeing if you can sort of nuance your way back into that connection. Again, no matter where you're at in your movement training, I hope this helps. Even little pieces of this might be useful for you. And either way, have a great one. Happy summer, and I'll see you soon.